everybody. Guess who it is? Guess what time it is? It's that time, that special time of the week that you just all wait for with anticipation. And you know what that time is? That time is, well, it's time for us to see the progress that Joe's beard has made. That's the time. That's the time of the week. We're seeing where we're at with the beard. The beard is looking majestic, Joe. So yeah, as some of you might know, or most of you should know. In fact, all of you should know who this is. This is none other than Joe Armeanio with me, and I'm Dan Friedman, the one, the only. Well, probably not the only Dan Friedman out there, because I'm sure there's other Dan Friedmans out there, but you know, the one that you know and love. And yeah, so this is the weekly AMA, and you know, by popular requests, I'm here touching grass. Yes. Yeah. See, I'm in the grass. I'm here to touch grass right behind me. Touch, not smoke. All right. Say hi to everyone, Joe.
How's everybody doing this week? Yeah, there's been a lot going on. I haven't been on these for a couple of weeks, but hopped into the development update yesterday. And there's a lot of things that are, under testing right now. Lilium is on testnet. That was a hackathon project regarding NFTs. Rosen is doing its public test. I saw that they're going to add Comet and Hosky to the next phase of testing, so people can play around with their meme coins, hopefully not put a lot of actual value at risk, and play around with bridging. Blitz, the trading card game, had community kind of a play test thing, which is awesome to see. So congratulations to Mick. I know that's been something he's been grinding on for quite a while. Let's see what else. Ergo Monitor, which is kind of like a data notification service, is growing out and following Sigmafy, Rosenbridge, all kinds of stuff. They have a Telegram that you can sign up for and kind of track notifications on different wallets. Pretty useful for miners as well. Then Grand Gambit is, bringing back Bob Barker with some Plinko. I guess new game for degenerates to have fun with and potentially make some money. Dexy is, it's still in progress, but improving. I know that they've done some test transactions. They're, moving towards mainnet. Analog Ergo with some atomic swap stuff. I know Alex dropped a new node. ErgoPad's playing around with the new marketplace. So there's a lot happening in the background that, it's kind of preparation for mainnet. A lot of work you don't see in this space, right? And it's nice to see it kind of coming towards the public side. So I'm pretty excited with a lot of stuff. It's in motion.
Yeah, definitely a lot of stuff going on. Just getting back from a few holidays right now in Asia here. Going to start speaking with some funds again. So that's an ongoing thing. Speaking with, again, some exchanges, picking up those conversations about Rosen. Need just to get some more details together from our end. The curriculum is coming along really well. And on the Palmyra side, there's actually some interesting stuff going on. We're actually building out a traceability solution on Ergo right now. It's a pretty simple traceability solution, but it will run on Ergo, and then we'll of course scale up as it's needed. But just very very exciting to be able to to start really creating something that is potentially going to be, it's going to be open source, and it's going to be able to be utilized by other devs and other projects. All right, so let's get to the questions. What do you think, Joe?
Ready.
All right. So Well, listen. Let me answer this one question about Palmyra that is from Joe Halton. And so Joe is asking, this is a really good question just in general about utilizing Ergo for real world use cases. How will people with limited access to sexes and technology on board to using the Palmyra Comdex? How will they convert their fiat to Ergo with limited banking? Right. That's a very good question. And this is something that we spent a lot of time thinking about. So the way we're designing Palmyra is that we are offering as many options as possible. So it's not just crypto, right? It's not just fiat. It's not just credit cards. It's basically everything that we can put in there. It's crypto and non-crypto payments. We're working with a very good, one of the largest on-off ramps and payment rail providers out there. I'm not going to name drop just yet until we sign a contract with them. And so basically, it's going to act as an on-off ramp, and so essentially they're going to on-off ramp Ergo. Now, will the people utilizing Palmyra know that they're using Ergo? Not necessarily. In some cases, they just don't need to know that they're using, what crypto they're using. They just know that it's being done in crypto, or that it's just an instant payment, really. Because, in the end, when you're making your Visa payment, do you care exactly which part of the network the Visa rails are using? Again, I hate to bring that example all the time because it is a fiat system. It is kind of, we're trying to get away from. It's a centralized system. But essentially, the thinking is kind of the same. We can't expect people to all be really aware about how exactly the payments work, how exactly the payment rails work. They just need to be easily accessible, easily usable, and secure. And that's it. And that's what we're offering. Short answer is the on-off ramps that are going to be handling the fiat to Ergo, Ergo to fiat, or Ergo to other crypto, stables to Ergo, Ergo to stables transactions. And again, limited banking, that is a consideration. However, a lot of the customers that are going to be utilizing Palmyra right now are actually they're established companies. So there's not going to be too many, say, individuals, like one person. Joe's not going to go on there and order, a ton of tea. Maybe he will, but most likely is going to be a company that's doing it, and is going to be a company that's selling the tea. Even the farmers that are selling the tea to the factories, they also utilize some form of banking. Now, of course, there is also a solution that is going to be bringing back, not banking, but payment rail solutions, payment rail options to people like, say, the farmers who are not necessarily, might necessarily have a lot of banking options. And that's going to be through a payment system that we're going to establish. But we have, the working name is Palmyra Pay, sort of like Elite Pay, not exactly, but basically is going to be kind of an option for them to use if they don't have direct access to banking. So it's just all about options. It's all about options, and it's all about really just making things as easy as possible for people and making it as secure as possible for people. I hope that answered the question.
No, that's all right. Good question to kind of dive into. Anyway, first thing is I love tea, right? Tea parties all the time over here. It's cold. It's delicious. In terms of like onboarding users where they don't have, banking access, they don't have central exchange access, you're kind of down to this idea where you can, perform work, whether that's like computational work in the form of mining, and then you get some return. You can also potentially have like an exchange of goods but then you have to have a counterparty that has crypto. And then, we have service side as well, where, you may be able to provide services either online or locally. Again, you kind of need the counterparty. And we've seen some interesting things. Like, I know that there's like lazy mint NFTs, where if people have art skills, they can potentially like sell an NFT before they pay for the mint and, potentially earn crypto. So there's a lot of, potential to grow the goods and services side as well, beyond just Palmyra, just in terms of promoting greater adoption for those areas. I think that continually needs to be something that we think about, because that's a huge underserviced kind of demographic in this world.
Yeah, it's interesting to mention the lazy NFT scenario. This is actually something that we've also been thinking about, which is basically providing NFT services, NFT minting services to companies and people that are utilizing Palmyra and not necessarily have the access to be able to mint an NFT. So these would be NFTs that are pre-minted and then bought by basically people that in the Palmyra ecosystem, and then they can be either sold or traded or lent to the people actually tokenizing the asset, and then there can be some sort of a revenue sharing event that happens along the line for using the NFT. So yeah, that's definitely a good point, and that's definitely something that we're also really looking to do at Palmyra. Again, it's all about the options. It's all about having as many options as possible, and providing a service that is stable, secure, and robust. All right, so let's see. We got a lot of really good questions today. Let's see. Well, this is a good question here. So L2 scaling solutions. So the Conan, I think the Conan asks, L2 scaling solutions, what do Joe and Kushti, well, Kushti's in here, so does Joe think about Hydra as an option for Ergo? How is Hydra similar, different to what Spectrum is doing?
All right, so let's start with the first. Ergo is part of a organization called the UTXO Alliance, right? And what that is it's a group of UTXO-based blockchains that kind of work in a collaborative nature. And so actually, I think this Friday, there's a meeting, and the idea of porting Hydra to Ergo is one of the points of discussion, right? So that's kind of an ongoing work. Now, one thing that's nice about having these, let's say, joint groups is we offer kind of different strengths. An example, one project on Ergo that's kind of interesting to that group is going to be Rosenbridge, because potentially you get increased liquidity between different projects in the alliance, and so it's more about collaboration. How can we create good standards? How can we collaborate and kind of build out UTXO? Because the truth of the matter is EVM has a big head start, right? It's got some obvious issues, as we can see, where you have wallets that are being drained all too often. So there are some nice collaborative efforts kind of underway in the background that they take time, right? So that's kind of an ongoing venture. I know that the IOG Cardano side is, kind of in, let's say, the lead position there. So it is something that, we can port to Ergo. In porting that to Ergo, I think then it's a matter of, making it open source, getting the proper tooling, documentation, and passing it out to where if a project like Spectrum said, hey, this scaling solution fits, they have the code, they have the tooling, the libraries, etc., to plug it in. long term, we may see some, work towards atomic swaps between the chains that support the, hashed time lock contract. And that would be pretty cool to get some atomic swaps between different projects. There's just a lot that we could potentially do there. So, do I think Hydra is an option for Ergo? Yeah, it's actually an option that's, actively in discussion. And, then it's a matter of how best to plug it in and kind of pass it to the developer side. That way, they can figure out when and where it makes sense for their project.
Right. Yeah. All right. Let's, that's, well said. I don't really have anything to add to that. All right. Well, we got a question from our friend Augustus Kent right here, and it's a good question. Are you surprised that Ergo's cheap and secure NFTs have not been utilized more? Yes and no. I think that this is a very common symptom of just the crypto market and the blockchain space. And that is good technology is, there's a lot of good technology that's being wasted because it's being underutilized over not good technology because they just won the marketing and the popularity contest. Why is Pepe blowing up right now? What the hell is Pepe? Another meme coin, really? We're not even out of a bear market just yet, and people are pumping money into meme coin. Okay. Do you look at it and you say, really? Yeah, but that's just going to keep happening over and over and over again. It's a symptom of the market. It's a common symptom of the market and of the space, unfortunately. So I am surprised that because there are enough smart people in the space to understand technology and understand utility, understand viability, both technologically and economically, or and commercially, and so that Ergo NFTs haven't been noticed, but then we're still kind of early. I noticed them. Obviously, to me, it made perfect sense to use Ergo NFTs for what I'm doing, for what we're doing with Palmyra. Will others recognize it? Yes, I think so, especially when we lead the way with showing what they can do with Palmyra. When will that happen? I don't know. Could be really quickly. It could be, could be a couple of really killer dApps on Ergo are just going to blow things up and people are going to be like, oh my God, how did I not know about this? Or it could be, we have a few really good dApps and people love the dApps, but they still just are really thick about understanding the ecosystem, and it takes a while. You can never predict these things. So all we can really do is just understand what we have, utilize it as much as possible, and just keep building. That's all I got to say about that. What do you think, Joe?
The NFTs are kind of a complex market. It's pretty diverse. I think that there's a ton of underappreciated artists in the blockchain space in general, but I don't think that really is that much different than the off-chain world, to be honest. There's a ton of noise in the NFT side, which, some people love. Some people are just overwhelmed because, sometimes there's a lot of drama. Then I think, you have like the technical side. There's a lot possible that, I would say has been more at this point an idea, maybe lacking implementation with NFTs. But, there's a lot of unique use cases that could be explored there. Now, if you're talking about just like the typical, NFT drop, generally, most artists chase liquidity, and so they go to markets that have liquidity, right? And, so I think, you have Ethereum is pretty dominant there just because there's, a larger market now. Being that there's a larger market, there's also more competition, and probably there's a lot of people that try and just get buried. So that is one benefit of starting in a smaller ecosystem to a degree is you get greater visibility. Imagine the noise, amplified, by X degree, depending on the chain and the size of the market. And I don't know, a lot of the times you get like NFT influencers, I guess. That's a thing. It's there's a lot of marketing involved there. I have to be honest, I'm not always the best person to ask about like the intrinsic value of art. People make their own decisions, right? Hard to say.
Yeah. I mean, it's also it's art that's not, because you got a lot of the people they're saying that are in it for the art are just in it for the cash grab. They're holding on to it because they think it's going to be worth more than they bought it for. And again, yeah, you can do that with regular art, physical art, but with people who own art, who own pieces of art that they actually purchased. Is there more people that own art because they're thinking of flipping it because they own it because of its value, or do they own it because they enjoy it, or is it both? And how much? Like, what is the ratio there? Is there more like money or appreciation or money? Like, is it more money than appreciation, or is there more appreciation than money? I honestly don't know. I actually would like to know that, but. It also, like the market sometimes just doesn't do itself any favors, and this is why, again, why Ergo, an NFT, Ergo NFT technology is not as well recognized because, like Joe said, it's just, art drops and influencers and, who's the bigger DJ and, who owns what collection and, yeah, it's about liquidity. And, it's also about the attitude, some NFT influencers, they're acting like they're curing cancer with NFTs, it's like, come on, guys, you're not, yeah, so it's kind of a difficult. It's like Joe said, it's a very complex field. But I just feel like really the entire industry is, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, is really just trying to grab what is going to make the most cash right now versus what is the most robust use case that will have long-term value. And I think that's a big mistake. That like 95% of all NFTs that you buy today are going to be worthless in a couple of years. That's just how it works. And really to utilize the NFT for art. It's kind of like having a Ferrari and using it as a paperweight. I'm not trying to diminish the use case that NFTs have for art, but with that, like I said, it's like if you need to hold something down, and that's basically what you need done, and you just have a Ferrari. Well, yeah, it's a good, that's a use case, but there's other use cases that you can have with it. So yeah,
things like Urbit, or you can look at how NFTs are used for profit distribution potentially, or even the gaming side is pretty unique. So there's a lot of technology you can kind of plug into that. That is still needs to kind of be developed, explored, and mature.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we can go on about the subject for a while. So let's maybe move on to something different here. All right. Okay. Well, here's a good question from our friend Fo, who is back. We missed you, Fo. Good to see you back in the Ergo in the Ergo circles. So other than the Rosen Bridge and Palmyra, what other elements of this year's roadmap do you think is going to help improve Ergo's accessibility and liquidity? What do you think, Joe? I mean, I guess it would be, some projects that are that just basically got out of Ergo hack. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that, on like the base level, you can look at expansion of proof of work. We have Lithos, which is pretty interesting. That could give us a lot of kind of awareness in terms of Ergo. If, their new kind of mining solution starts to be a viable alternative to Stratum, that would probably get a lot of eyes, views. Then you go to like the liquidity side that has to do with like activity and trading. I think all of the DeFi primitives that are being built open the potential to, new forms of arbitrage, trading strategies. And I do think that as we kind of build out this idea of decentralized trade bots, it kind of puts the user more in the position of a traditional market maker, right? Where, if you look kind of on the back end of exchanges, what's happening is you usually have market makers that have kind of a spread portfolio that are trading, against spot in multiple environments and kind of scraping the difference, so to speak, where, they may buy on one exchange and sell on the other and take advantage of that price difference, right? One unique thing that trade bots potentially do is give that power to the user, right? I know there are central exchanges that do offer, grid bots and, sometimes, I guess even like leverage or margin exposure, but that helps with liquidity too. But I think taking that and putting it in the custody of the user could potentially really assist in driving liquidity and activity. There just probably needs to be education along with the tooling, right? How to use it, what kind of strategies make sense. There's a lot that can kind of develop there on the DeFi side. Other than Rosen Bridge and Palmyra, then you have like direct accessibility, and that usually has to do with exchange partnerships. That's something that we're always pushing for, right? Right now in the US, things are a little crazy where, people are getting served Wells notices and talking about offshoring. And I hate to say that the exchanges have their own problems in-house, but right now they have their own problems in-house that probably is taking priority time resources away from just listing. It's more surviving as a business in a harsh environment that's both unpredictable and aggressive.
Yeah, and I mean, the way the SEC is operating right now, it's basically turning into predatorial. I mean, that's what it is. What's been happening with Bittrex is ridiculous. I've got a long relationship with Bittrex. We is the first exchange to list ADA. So I personally worked on that listing back in 2017. And I mean, these guys, they did not do anything recklessly. These guys were always very by the book. They were always very, I don't know. It's like, it's one of very few exchanges that I've met that actually did try to comply and did try to do things fairly, and what they're doing to them right now is basically extortion, because I mean, they're not shutting them down. They're just saying, oh yeah, we're not going to shut you down, just give us $29 million. It's basically a bribe, It's like, give us it's like racketeering. Give us this money or else we're going to mess you up. And Gary is a shady mofo. I mean, this guy says one thing and then he goes under oath and says something different. And all of this, what does all of this do? Well, all of this basically, I mean, it really, they're not doing anybody any favors because the rest of the world is figuring out crypto. They're figuring out blockchain, they're figuring out crypto. And it's just the U.S. is hurting itself because for the longest time, the U.S. wasn't really bothering with trying to have regulatory clarity about crypto. And all of a sudden, they just kind of rushed in and started basically, selectively legislating and extorting money out of crypto projects that they, it's basically like the Red Scare, or not the Red Scare, basically, the communist reconstruction back in the 30s is when the Stalin was basically rooting out all the people that were kind of from the original order of the Communist Party that started the Soviet Union, and he was just kind of weeding those people out and sending them to Siberia or having them executed, and it's kind of like the same thing. It's basically selective legislation without any regulatory clarity, without any kind of any real common sense. And like I said, all it's doing for the U.S. is basically setting us back. Setting the U.S. back. It's setting the U.S. back years, and it's driving business out of the U.S. And it's sort of like what Japan actually did. And you would think that people would learn. I mean, Japan back in 2015, 2016 became really crypto friendly, and it became, and it said that Bitcoin is a legal tender, and all these projects started popping up in Japan, and it started this crypto spring in Japan, and this is where Cardano was born. And then all of a sudden the Japanese lawmakers are like, oh, wait a second, oh my God, where's all this money coming from? We need to know how to tax it. Let's make up a bunch of laws that really just, instead of trying to figure out a system, a common sense legislative framework, they just kind of started slapping on these ridiculously stupid laws that basically, like right now, no accountant out here will touch crypto, like crypto taxes. Nobody will touch them because it's just that there is such regulatory vagueness and such regulatory uncertainty that nobody wants to even deal with it. And that's it. And that's what the U.S. is doing to itself. It's basically setting itself back and driving innovation out of the U.S. And the innovation is not going to get scared because Gary pulled some bullshit and try to extort more money from another platform. They're going to go to Dubai. They're going to go to Europe. They're going to go to Malta. They're going to go to all these different countries that are smarter, that are more, make kind of more common sense about this stuff. And yeah, it's really sad to see because what it also really does is it kind of hurts both ways when you're dealing with a project. For example, when you're doing a raise, most projects right now, they won't sell to U.S. citizens, and it literally has this. There's like a list, and it's like Iran, North Korea, Caribbean, the United States of America. It's like it's now we're in the same column as North Korea and Iran for regions that they just don't want to deal with. And what that does is, number one, it really doesn't give crypto and blockchain enthusiasts in the U.S. the ability to participate in these ICOs and TGEs, and it also limits the areas where a project can launch, because you don't want to then be, hit by the SEC saying that, oh, hey, you guys sold a bunch of securities. Give us $30 million. I don't want to deal with that. So what are they going to do? They're going to cut out the U.S. They're going to cut out all these regions that are problematic. And it's just very, very unfortunate. And it's very unfortunate that the U.S. is now in the same ranks as, North Korea for nobody wanting to deal with the regulations. Anyway, I can go on about this forever. So, yeah, hopefully something will change.
Hey, I caught part of that. He was talking, and it was like, so you think you can dance around the question time after time after time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still waiting for him to answer exactly, how is all crypto a security, but Algorand isn't. Anyway, and I like Algorand, but it's just kind of like it's kind of funny. Everybody's a security except for Algorand. Why? Anyway. All right, let's go to another question here. Okay. Okay, so FC asks, this is a good question right now for people basically wondering about this. So how is Rosen funded? Is it the Ergo Foundation, I think you mean the Cardano Foundation? Who leads it? Is the Ergo side? So why don't you take that question, Joe?
So in this space, the simple answer is yes, there was a bridge grant that was given. Part of the reason why is because the cost of listing in exchanges is quite high. Right. And so this idea that we have the ability to access liquidity and work around exchanges, at a lower cost than even listing it in exchange, is a pretty good, let's say, investment for a small growing ecosystem. Now, one thing that we did ask, and we generally ask with grants, is that it's open source. That way the community benefits, everybody can look at it, take it apart, reuse parts of it for their project, and it becomes like public infrastructure, right? Now, the actual process of implementing that bridge, it took a while. Initially, I think we went through 2 or 3 different potential bridge designs that we were going to partner with. And as many of you know, the bridge space had a lot of demolition, had a lot of hacks, had a lot of issues. So that kind of led to this idea of Rosen, let's build something that's Ergo native that, basically helps to remediate a lot of the risks that we've just seen fail. So it is, initially funded by a bridge grant. There is a team. That team is led by MHS, which is not directly on the Ergo Foundation, but is, for lack of a better thing, an honorary member. He's been around, helped write the mining software. Is somebody whose skill and expertise really is beneficial. So someone whose opinion I always try to listen to. So he's not directly in the Ergo Foundation officially, but he is part of the Ergo Foundation because he's been a part of Ergo, since testnet days. So it does have its own team. I can't remember the exact size of it, but they've been working probably for a year, maybe more, in terms of Rosen. One neat thing that we'll see is a lot of tooling, a lot of smart contracts that are just open, available to the public. Any developer that wants to try to take part of that, improve it, use it in their project, is free to. And that's a part of what the Ergo Foundation's mandate is not just to assist in the, let's say, market side of, let's say, Ergo, in terms of, educating people and kind of getting some market adoption. It's also to work with creating an open source development environment that allows developers, people, projects to come in, play, build, And, sometimes we have, thrown out small grants to push for that. That's not the only one. Back in the day, we had a small grant that started Ergo decks, which then kind of spun into its own thing. And it was just kind of a way to assist that project, right? But being that everything is open source, then it leads to new innovation that's built on that open source technology, and it kind of takes on a life of its own, which is great.
Yeah, and especially with Spectrum, Ergo Decks now Spectrum, there's a lot of innovation happening there. They have, they're writing some really complicated code, first of all. Their Scala functional Scala stuff is giving me a headache, but it's good. They're writing a lot of really good code. They're writing a lot of really good frameworks. They're writing their own protocol, in fact, right now, or in fact, maybe they're finished with it. And it's just, it helps build the ecosystem. And I'll give you an example, a really good example. Again, is from my personal experience. Part of Palmyra is going to be, of course, the NFT buying and selling, which is going to be the representation of real world commodities. But under the hood is basically buying and selling NFTs. And so, what do you need for that? You need an NFT viewer explorer. You need to have a wallet to store the NFTs and to transfer the NFTs, the ownership of NFTs. You also need a wallet to make the transactions as they happen. And it's good to be able to go and say, hey, I can use Nautilus for this. Or maybe I can, maybe use some of the NFT marketplaces that are on Ergo and utilize some of their code, or maybe use, some of the code from Terminus Wallet. It's just really good. It really helps because you don't have to just kind of start from scratch and spend all this time trying to figure this stuff out and bench test it and beta test it and, write a 5,047 wallet that is basically doing the same thing as all these other wallets are doing. It's just really good. In fact, I am fairly certain that we're going to be utilizing some of the Nautilus code base for the NFT transactions and NFT storage and whatnot. Of course, is going to be Palmyralized. But in the back there's going to be Nautilus stuff running. So it just makes, if you got a good viable idea and a good viable business plan, working in an ecosystem like Ergo and working with all these open source tool chests is great. It's great. It really kind of opens up possibilities, and it really makes, if you know what you're doing and if you know what you want, it makes things a hell of a lot easier to create. So, open source for the win. FTW. All right, let's do another question here. I think maybe it might be the last question we take because we're getting pretty close to the top of the hour. Okay.
I think there's a good one from Luke there.
Let me see. Let me see if I can find it here. The one. Okay, which one? The one about SEC or the one about Dixie Gold?
I'd say the XCC. I mean, that's what's on people's mind, it seems.
Yeah. So let's do that one. So can you guys discuss the SEC going after Dash? Gensler is being cagey, but it looks like the plan to hit any project with a foundation. Dash had a fair launch. So what do you think about that, Joe?
Well, I think the first thing that I thought was, let's just say comical, right? Is, his comments in terms of like, if there's anything that is being maintained or developed, it's a security, right? If there's any party that's working on the system, it's a security. Well, software takes maintenance, right? even if the system itself is not really evolving, you could look in something like Bitcoin Core. There's a ton of ongoing maintenance, always, right? Now, in terms of Dash, Dash was a fair launch. It did have this masternode structure. Dash has kind of always, I guess, not gotten too much love because it also has some privacy, capabilities. Now, in terms of a foundation, I think that's silly, personally, right? Because the truth is, if you're going to work with an exchange, you need a counterparty. Okay. And so every listing has someone on the back end that is probably, covering the costs of the listing, and most likely is working with some market maker to create liquidity on markets. Okay. And if that doesn't move through a foundation, we don't know who it is, right? So let's say that I was that party and I say, hey, I've raised the funds where I'm going to list on a large exchange. And I'm also, have some market making capabilities, which usually is a part of an exchange listing requirement. I have the ability to use that information asymmetry and kind of my liquidity and market making ability to profit heavily from that, right? You could potentially say, okay, I'm going to list on X date, front run that, get the listing, market make, and, you basically have a huge lack of transparency there. And, in my opinion, that's a problem, right? It moves things into the dark. I know that there's a lot of people that don't understand that. So they think, oh, there's no foundation, but one of the benefits there is transparency, right? The Ergo Foundation is, ran its budget on chain. It's auditable basically any time. Now, on the other side, you have a lot of foundations in the space that have done some sketchy shit. Right? You can say, okay, well, the Ethereum Foundation is called the top of bull markets twice. Either they have really good luck or that's a little sketchy. You have some foundations that have been trading against their own community and sometimes even publicly, where they'll disclose like, hey, we've been, building an asset portfolio. That means they're directly competing with traders on their ecosystem, right? That's not a good thing. Then you have foundations that will go out and they will actively create commercial deals that bring in partners that, number one, may not even offer any benefit, but it actively creates an external competitor to their own community, right? If I were to say, hey, I'm going to go, throw $100 million at DC Comics so they can come and make Superman NFTs. Well, what about the smaller artists on my chain, right? We may have just crowded them out of the market. So having a foundation itself, that's just a legal entity. You have to ask the question, what does it do? Like, critical thinking here, I think, is a little important. Now, on the other side, what's a benefit of having an entity, right? Well, a lot of people don't know this, but before the Ergo Foundation was formally put together in Singapore, we had to have people take private liability for exchange listings, right? Where, because we didn't have an entity, some of the core team would have to get together and say, okay, well, somebody has to sign this contract in order to list with this exchange. And, I hate to say it, but the conversation broke down to who lives in a non-extradition country, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Remember those conversations? A couple of earlier exchanges trying to extort money out of us because of that as well.
Yeah, that was a just topic of discussion. Okay, we don't have a formal entity that can absorb any liability in this situation, so that means that somebody has to personally carry it. And if somebody is, let's say, counterparty on a big exchange that potentially has a lot of volume, that's a little insane, right? Especially if, they're not a whale that doesn't have like the ability to directly profit from that type of deal. And when you don't have an entity and you put it in the private market, someone is going to exploit that for profit because there's a lot of cost. Right. And so, anybody with half a brain is not going to say, hey, I'm just going to pay for an exchange listing and run market making and not exploit the profit opportunity there. So, not having a foundation pushes it into the dark. Now, is there a lot of sketchy shit that foundations do? Absolutely. You could even look at the Bitcoin Foundation back in the day and their propensity to party. Right. There was, let's say, not always the greatest focus on, ecosystem development, software development. Sometimes it was, like these crypto, Lamborghini party in Dubai, right? It's like, what does that have to do with open source software and adoption of these ecosystems? Hell if I know, but sometimes the crypto space leans in that direction.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up that example, the Bitcoin Foundation. That was a dumpster fire. And that's the Bitcoin Foundation, so you got to think about that. Right. Well, I think, I think I kind of covered my feelings about the SEC and about how these ridiculous decisions are being made. And like I said, it's just killing the U.S. market. It's not going to kill crypto. It's just going to push it off somewhere where they can't touch it. And
yeah, we're in a good position, actually, that we have no direct financial liability in terms of business dealings we've done in the U.S. If we were to pay for Binance US or a Coinbase listing, that's a significant amount of our budget that we would just be throwing into regulatory, black hole of darkness that who knows, it could be an issue. Right. And so in ongoing conversations, we always try to, do solid business where if we can create that for a reasonable cost, it's maybe worth the risk. But if it's, a massive expenditure from our treasury, and then you have uncertainty, is that really a wise choice moving forward? Especially if, there is clarity in the future, well, then that risk assessment, goes down quite a bit. We try to be conservative at the Ergo Foundation. We're not so fancy. I'm speaking to you from my basement, right?
Well, but you do have a really beautiful crock pot behind you.
No, thank you.
It's majestic. Anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it off for today. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, thanks for joining, everybody. It's good to be back. I've kind of been away for a couple of weeks, but enjoyed the questions, and keep coming, keep asking them. I hope that if we didn't get to you, we can next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.